So far, every single round has been won by Martin Lawrence. Will anyone be able to stop their streak today? Hello everybody and welcome back to the Friday GT Sprint Challenge. I'm Tim Peck, joined today by Austin Devonshire, and we have Kevin Boss behind the cameras. Austin, there's only one thing I have to say really, in that it's looking a little damp out on track at the moment.
I mean, let's be real, Verstappen probably has the weapon of choice here, being in a bit of a boat. So, I mean, we will talk about this a little bit before, as we always do. The Bentley should actually be fairly strong here. And practice times go to show that, you know, Verstappen was setting fastest times, being within the top three. So, that Bentley might actually be coming in clutch around here to this evening.
Absolutely. Keep your eyes on Verstappen because expected to do well today. Of course, has had a couple of good rounds already, but we'll be looking to be back on that top spot. Martin Lawrence, having won the first 3 rounds in this championship, struggling a little bit today in the Aston Martin. Can't quite find the time they want to yet, but take yourselves back 1 week and you might remember they also struggled in qualifying at Paul Ricard as well. In the final few seconds though, getting in the fastest lap time, a pole position 5/10 quicker than their nearest competitor as well, so definitely do not discount them yet. Welcome everybody, welcome to all of you joining us in the chat today as well. A couple of you already here, Mini Simeon already in the chat saying, oh, a squishy race, and they're excited for that too. I'm very excited for it as well, Austin. One thing that should be noticed about Zandvoort, very thin track at times.
Yeah, I mean, Sector 2 is all pretty much high-speed corners, and even the wide kind of hairpins, there's only really one line through them, especially with, since, you know, they're slightly banked. You know, it's worth saying that this is the older version of the track, before they changed it for Formula 1, so the hairpins are a little bit cambered, but nowhere near as to what they are in real life at the moment. That will need to come in an update, but yeah, no, apart from this section now that you're seeing on screen, it's not really an awful lot of places to overtake besides the chicane just after.
Absolutely, more often than not we do see a lot of risky moves at this track. Drivers looking to find a way through will be going for those very small gaps that aren't really there, like you said, Austin, but the problem is when the rain is pouring down like this, it just makes it that much harder to overtake as well. So qualifying here today is going to be very important. You do not want to find yourself stuck behind anybody else. You're going to want to be right at the top, but like we said, there's not a lot of opportunities for overtaking here, and that means for those that are looking quite good already, Christoph Verstappen with the fastest time in practice, they can be very excited for what they can do in this qualifying session.
Not a lot of space for overtaking, but not a lot of space for error either, Tim. I mean, I've seen cars on the exit of, or the apex of turn 2, turn 3. I've seen cars hit the curb and go flying. So, and again, in the high-speed corners, you know, the very narrow track, grass and gravel on either side, just to kind of pull you into its the waiting arms of the barrier. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're chasing a car, rather than trying to get rammed, forcing a mistake is definitely a strat that I would employ around here personally.
Absolutely, and we saw a lot of that last week as well. Cars following each other very closely, waiting for that moment when the car ahead makes a mistake. Well, 5 minutes into qualifying, Christoph Verstappen setting a provisional pole time of 1:41.555. Van Sant tucking in just behind, 4/10 behind in P2 there. Kwiatkowski slotting himself in P3, and Wilkinson for the silver split slotting himself in P4 as well. A lot of other drivers still yet to cross the line before we can get a good idea as to what the pace is looking like today. And there you go, Joshua Lation has a very good start to their season. We've interviewed them multiple times as well, Austin. Finding themselves on that podium again. I mean, they were on that podium slot at the end of Paul Ricard. They were fighting up there with the pros. They had a fight with Verstappen. They fought several of the other guys in the pro split as well. Joshua Lation absolutely on fire this season.
Yeah, I mean, they've said several times that winning silver is kind of their aim this season, and well, they're well on their way, only half a second off of the provisional time of Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence and the Aston coming in clutch with a 1:41.2. Again, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, in that, you know, I mean, obviously we've seen the Aston and the Bentley that have been competitive despite the new update coming out and the new cars coming out. Christoph Verstappen will go back into provisional pole, by the way. We'll be talking about this a little bit, that maybe, you know, the game is actually quite well balanced in some regards, that where we talk a lot about cars having a bit of an advantage here and there on certain tracks or certain situations, like the Bentley being really strong in the wet, but one thing two things we mentioned, sorry, was that the fact that these cars are performing so well, but look at the drivers that's in them. Now look at Verstappen, look at Lawrence, really top guys that are top every season, time after time. So really strong drivers. So maybe it's more to do with that than the car. But that being said, we also turned around and speculated that maybe the Aston wouldn't be so hot around here in the wet, and Lawrence has gone and done that.
Absolutely, I said to keep an eye on them early. You definitely can't discount them just because the car has a bit of a disadvantage. It's won the first 3 races of the season already, finding himself in P3 now, but only 800 behind pole. John Daly slotting himself into that P2 slot there. They had a very good race last week at Paul Ricard, able to secure second place by the end of it. They're third in the championship over Verstappen. With a fly over lap of 141.125 for them, is currently out on pole. And Austin, 15 minutes of qualifying. Usually what we see, cars diving into the pits about halfway through, refuel, fresh set of tyres. I'm wondering, with the weather being like this, we're probably just going to see most of them stay out on track the whole time, because when it's wet weather qualifying, really, a lot of it comes down to who crosses the line at the right time when there's the least amount of rain on track, and that could be in the middle of the session, that could be at the end, but it could also be right at the beginning as well. It looks like, looking at the forecast though, it is letting up a bit. So again, I'm going to imagine here, we're going to come to the end of this qualifying session, and those times are going to be getting a lot faster by the second.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen just came across the line, they're even quicker than before. I mean, now currently 0.3 of a second up on Daly. Lawrence is trying to respond there, but kind of getting the way past that Lexus. That Lexus is by Wales, down in P15 silver class driver, so is competing amongst their pack. But no, Lawrence on a bit of a mission at the moment, and not far off of Daly, and by proxy, not far from Verstappen.
Ted Edwards, I was about to mention, has yet to set a valid lap, has just managed to do it on their third attempt. They've slotted themselves in 1.5 seconds behind Verstappen at the front there. Will want to find themselves further up the field to be competitive in their class. However, they do have the majority of the silver split behind them, which I'd say is the goal for every pro driver right now. Their goal is just to not have any cars between them and the nearest competitor, because often, Austin, what we see is silver split cars sort of merging themselves in there amongst the pros, and it's fine, they're allowed to race each other. There's no rule that says that they've got to get out of the way. However, for a pro, that can be quite frustrating. They're not going to gain points for an overtake, and when it is very hard to overtake on a track like this, they're definitely not going to want a lot of silver split drivers in front of them today. Martin Lawrence getting very close to Verstappen's time, and they're just 200ths off, and very tight at the front, Austin. No idea how this is going to go, and we still have 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be back and forth. I mean, this is actually quite interesting, quite exciting even. I mean, Verstappen, you were talking about drivers, taking this all the way, staying out the whole time. Verstappen has gone back to the pits, and I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do an outlap again at that point. You got to get yourself back out there and actually kind of put a faster lap in, because I don't think Lawrence is going to let this go. There we go, there's Verstappen. Verstappen has exited pits as Ted Edwards is rounding the final corner. Maybe Verstappen was just trying to get a little bit of clear air. We saw the car in front of them earlier on, and maybe they were just caught in that little bubble, needed just to kind of break free, but leave enough time to get the tyres warmed up for a flying lap.
Absolutely. It's worth watching what happens to Verstappen, because 2 of the 3 races so far, Austin, they've aborted their final lap quite early on and actually not done a final qualifying lap, usually stopping a couple of laps before as well. So just keep an eye on that Bentley at the top there, whether they do stay out the pits for the entire rest of the qualifying session. Of course, 5 minutes left to go. Drivers still battling out for the fastest time around the track. Rain letting up by the minute here will just make those times a lot quicker as well. Kwiatkowski on your screen right now in the 212 Ferrari, 1.4 seconds off pole, which Martin Lawrence has just set, by the way, a 140.597 for the Aston Martin. Lawrence going back up to the top spot.
What a response, and Now I'm sat thinking about the races these guys have had. Lawrence has been quite consistently at the top, hasn't had too much trouble this season, but Verstappen, different story entirely. Picked up the penalty last race at Paul Ricard, and on week one got caught up in a little bit of a tussle at the start and had to fight the way back, but wasn't able to make anything of it. So Verstappen right now, even with the drop round, is kind of on the back leg here. You know, we've seen these guys be really close in the past, and I think they're going to need something really big from Lawrence, or something big to happen to Lawrence to really keep this one alive.
Oh, absolutely. Verstappen needs a golden end of this season. You said they've already used their drop round. Well, actually, in 2 races so far in this championship, they have scored 0 points the first round, finishing 13th, and then actually retiring from the race in the final few minutes. And then Paul Ricard last week only managing to finish P10, didn't score points for that either. So that's a drop round and 0 points involved in that, Austin. For those of you at home that don't know what we mean when we say a drop round, every driver's worst result of the season isn't counted towards the final total. Now, usually drivers use that if they can't attend a race, which will be recorded as the drop round. But if you have a particularly bad race, maybe you get 0 points, maybe you only get 3 or 4, that will be counted as your drop round at the end of the season as well. It keeps the championship battle very, very tight. But in this case, for Verstappen, I mean, they're sitting quite far behind, 41 points behind Martin Lawrence in the championship so far, Austin. That is a long way to climb. You can't even earn 41 points in one race alone. The maximum amount of points you can get is 39 for having the pole position, fastest lap, and the win. So Verstappen, they've got to do a bit of both here. They need to have a golden end of the season to them, but also they've got to hope for a little bit of misfortune from Martin Lawrence if they stand a chance of fighting back into this championship.
Yeah, I don't want to say they're a long way back, but until I mean, it's certainly seeming that way, at least in regards to Lawrence, and those two are your typical championship contenders. As it's the 137 crossing the line there. Not really improving on their position. Still P15, 13 coming across the line. Will go up to P4. So, yeah, I mean, in the closing stages of quality, the Balamonte able to make a few more places. There's a little bit of a shuffling of the order, but as of right now, it's still Lawrence, Daly, and Verstappen. I mean, Daly at some point along the way has just slipped in ahead of Verstappen as well, and Wilkinson ahead of Lation too. That's an interesting one.
It is, but when we were talking to Lation last week, they were saying that him and his teammates were in the top 3. Well, Wilkinson is one of those teammates, currently their closest competitor in the silver split as well. So definitely don't discount Wilkinson. There was a point in time, race 2 of course, at Alton Park. They won the race as well. Unfortunately for them, did not have a good time in the first race at Barcelona, which is why they find themselves a bit further down the standings than Lation themselves. But definitely don't discount Reece Wilkinson from this championship, Austin, because very similar paces those two, and we know that their goal is to be promoted at the end of the season. Joshua Lation, by the way, starting himself up into that P4 overall, just behind Verstappen. I mentioned last week they're a bit disappointed that their battle on track with Verstappen ended early due to a penalty. Looks like they may have an opportunity to revive that here today, Austin.
Yep, it certainly seems that way, and I mean, only literally just 2/10 off of Verstappen, so depending on the start, I mean, we saw Verstappen last week, obviously, on both occasions actually, get a flyer of a start off the green light, but any progress was kind of halted with the restart, and then they just weren't able to really kind of capitalize on the second start either, but off the line, they were away with it, so Lation's going to have that to deal with. And speaking of Verstappen's got even faster still. Provisional pole, but 140.452. That's about 1.5 tenths ahead of Lawrence right now, so Verstappen definitely responding.
Absolutely, just 20 seconds left in the qualifying here today. Verstappen currently holding on to that provisional pole, but Lawrence yet to cross the line again. Will probably be looking to fight that back. I think, Austin, like we said, it's going to come down to who gets across the line last before they can do one more lap, and then they'll get perfect lap on track with the least amount of rain. Of course, Verstappen not going to be in that situation. We've just hit 0 now, and they are finishing their current lap. Martin Lawrence, where are they? They're just coming round. Want the right-hander now in sector 2, so watch both of those cars, because I imagine whichever one crosses the line last may have the best advantage at the fastest time here. John Daly peeling into the pits. They've aborted their final lap. Will settle for a provisional P3 for now. Kwiatkowski about to come across the line, currently in P10. Is this an improvement for the 2-1-2 driver? It is, pushes them up into that 9th place slot, just ahead of another silver split driver for them. And here you go, Christoph Verstappen, person everyone is watching here today, coming round the final corner. Is this an improvement on their previous lap, or will the 140.452 be the time to beat? It's very close right now between the two drivers, and Verstappen not up on their time retires to the pit. Austin Lawrence currently on a delta that will put them on pole position.
I mean, there's still a bit to go. I mean, coming into the Hershey, this is the final corner, so this could actually be a thing. So coming around onto the final exit curve, I'll have to see where it brings them out. There's the start-finish line, there's the timing line, and that will be pole, but only by a slither. That's what, 0.06 of a second. So, oof, or 0.06 of a second even, but still, that's like nothing.
A flying lap at the end there for Martin Lawrence puts them on that pole position. Joshua Lation, the only driver yet to cross the line, now also on a great lap, puts himself up in P3 for the silver split leader. Great qualifying from them as well, but those are your standings for the start of the race day. Martin Lawrence will line up on pole position. Christoph Verstappen just behind them will start P2. Joshua Lation for the silver split in P3 with the fastest sector 2 time as well. So definitely keep your eyes on the number 97 today. John Daly will be looking to try and score another podium as well there in P4. Lagalante P5, Ballamont P6, Wilkinson in P7, Van Sand in P8, Kwiatkowski and Velhus will round out your top 10. Well, those are the standings after qualifying. Let's have a look at the standings overall in the championship so far. This is after 3 rounds. We're halfway through the season, and Martin Lawrence with a whopping 73 points at the top of the pro split. Grant Willamot with 52 points is in P2. Just 2 points behind them is Jordan Daly, and Billy Octane slotting himself into P4 with 34 points. Christopher Sheppen has had 2 0-point races this season. They find themselves in 5th place with first 2 points all scored in round 2 at Alton Park. Lagalante in P6. They're 2 points ahead of both Kwiatkowski and Ted Edwards, tied with 24 points for P7. Van Sand in P9 has 18 points, which is 3 ahead of Beaumont, who rounds out the top 10. And Chris van der Linde in P11 there. They've got 7 points. Bailey Collins scoring himself 5 points is up in P12. Kabaki has 0 points, is still fighting in this championship though. And everyone else with the hyphen next to their name has since signed out of the championship and will no longer be competing in future races.
Okay, so starting on the silver championship, it's kind of a triple Welsh podium. Joshua Lation in first place with 73 points. Reese Wilkinson tailing in P2 with 59, closely followed by Ryan Daniels with 54 points. Marvin Stier in P4 with 47. Daniel Durrett, P5, 42 with some Canadian representation. Jim Plasman in P6 with 40 points, trailed by Ricardo with 36. P8 is Teixeira with 28 points, and Ibiza Racer coming in P9 with just 26, just 2 points behind. Virtuos rounds out the top 10 with 7 points. P11 is John Wales with 2 points in that Lexus. Ovso with 0 points in P12. P13 is Tony Quito with 0 points, and P14 is Joe Newman with 0 points. And everybody, and just like before, everyone with the hyphen bit with next to the name has signed out.
Well, that is how the standings are looking after the first 3 races in the championship. Of course, we're halfway through the season now, have 3 more races to go. One of those today being at Zandvoort in what can only be described as torrential rain at the moment. I'd like to take a moment to thank our partners who helped to make all of this racing possible. We have AK Esports, who are a leader in esports management and competitions around the world. For more on their services, you can visit akesports.it, find out what they can provide us, and you as well at home. Digital Motorsports are your top brand and your one-stop shop for everything sim racing. Go over to their website and check out their new sim rig builder, where you can build your own sim rig from the ground up. I highly recommend checking it out. There's some great stuff in there. It's actually very fun to do as well, and might just convince you to invest in a newer sim rig as well. Visit the link in our description and give that a go today. Driver 61 helps sim racers fulfill their full potential out on track. RCI viewers can get 25% off driver coaching by using the discount code in the description of this video, and maybe then you could be fighting at the top of these championships yourself as well. Go Setups provide expertly made ACC setups for all skill levels. They're provided by some of the fastest drivers and sim racing engineers from around the world, and they're fully tailored esports setup as well as safe alternatives just for anyone that wants to try them out as well. And visit the link in the description, browse their premium setup shop today. And then Fanatec don't need any introduction, well known as a global leader in high-end sim racing hardware. If you use our affiliate link when making a purchase from Fanatec, you can help us out, and thank you very much for doing so as well. Well, we're now onto the grid. Connection lost racing car Martin Lawrence on the left hand side of the screen there. The RCI esports car of Christopher Streppen just going across your right now, and then there you go, Joshua Lation on the left. They are your silver split leader, starting P3 today, and I know I say this every week, Austin, but they never fail to amaze me with the pace that they put out.
Yeah, I mean, as we said earlier in the stream, you could put these guys in any car on the grid. You can put them in any car in the sim, and respective to each other. As long as it's in the same class, it will always be so close. And I mean, that's just what makes it worth watching, really, isn't it? It's what makes these championships so much fun, because they're so unpredictable. I mean, there's a certain degree of predictability, I think, which is where I think is a good thing in some regards, because then it means you have people who have the ability to sort of set out a shocker, set out a surprise. You know, you have these underdog drivers to root for, but then you've also got the household favourites like Verstappen, like Lawrence, and that's, you know, it brings it all together.
Yeah, like you said, there's that amount of predictability to it, where you've got Lawrence and Verstappen, you mentioned earlier, you expect to see them fighting at the top of the championship, but like you said, it leaves that window of excitement still open, because like we find this season, Verstappen having 0 points in 2 of the rounds so far, finding himself all the way down in P5 in the champ overall. I mean, I'm sure that comes as a huge surprise to a lot of long-time viewers who are very used to seeing Verstappen leading these championships and winning them as well. I mean, I can't even count how many championships I've watched Verstappen win now. Certainly can't count the amount of races I've watched them win, because they always seem to be at the top, and it's a very weird situation to not see them fighting around the top. That being said though, take us back a season, very similar situation. Martin Lawrence leading the first 3 races out the bat, fell off a little bit towards the end of the season with some unfortunate luck, which saw Verstappen come back into it and eventually win the championship as well. So Martin Lawrence came back into this season with a vendetta against Verstappen. They needed to prove that they did have what it takes to win the championship overall, and so far is going in the right direction. 3 race wins in the championship under their belt. We'll be looking to see if they can have a full sweep of the entire season. See what they can do at Zandvoort here today, but so far, starting on pole, Austin, it is looking great yet again, Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, but how often can they do this? How often can they just keep putting in seemingly flawless races, you know, just starting at the front and dominating and just commanding the race for the full hour, especially on this track in these conditions, and that car, as we've already said, as good as Lawrence is, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, how many races in the season can you keep this up for? It feels like Lawrence has to make a mistake somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to call, because you almost expect them to make a mistake at some point. But that being said, I mean, let's look back at the last 3 races, Austin. Has Martin Lawrence made a single mistake? Not that I can remember. I don't remember ever watching one of these races and thinking, oh gosh, that's Martin Lawrence going slightly off track. I don't even remember them making a slight mistake and going a bit wide on a corner at this point so far in this championship. They've been flawless so far, so definitely keep your eyes on the Aston Martin driver there. They have been phenomenal and look to continue that way. And we said earlier, these guys competing at the top level, I mean, how many times do you expect them to make a mistake? Not a lot, honestly. They're some of the best drivers in the world, so I don't know. Verstappen may have to try and do something here. We'll probably be looking for an overtake at the first corner. Speaking of, we are coming onto the start-finish straight now. Very quick lap here at Zandvoort, as opposed to Paul Ricard last week, where it felt like we were waiting for absolutely ages for them to get back to the start-finish line. Martin Lawrence on the inside for the first corner here. The car's already off on their way, and Verstappen having a mega good start there ahead of Martin Lawrence, but unfortunately for them on the outside here won't be able to hold on to it. I believe there's Daly there getting a bit messed up through the corner. Joshua Lation also falling back a bit as well. Like Alante gaining a couple of positions at the top. Verstappen and Martin Lawrence still neck and neck going through the S's section, and with that Verstappen will be on the inside for the next corner. That pushes them up into P1. The Bentley driver now in the lead of this race. Martin Lawrence in P2, and I'm not 100% sure who that is in P3, but I don't believe that is Lation.
No, P3 I can't really see. No, that is a Ferrari. That is Daly in P3. So relation. I mean, we'll have to wait and see where the scoreboard kind of equals out. I can't really tell where Lation actually is, but looks like they're down all the way in P11. So that's been a bit of a thing. Also, you were talking about before, that might have been a little bit of a mistake there from Lawrence. Lawrence just went a little bit deep into that corner, so maybe taking it back a little bit. I mean, Verstappen just got that amazing start, put the car alongside. They both gave each other quite a bit of space on such a narrow track. That it wasn't an overtaking opportunity really on Verstappen's part, but they've managed to make it stick. Like Alante coming in P4, chasing down the likes of Daly, and Van Sant still on the rear of that Porsche. So right now, a little bit of a cluster in the opening lap. But I mean, there's some big order changes. I mean, what happened to Lation?
I saw a car falling down on the left-hand side. I assumed at first it was John Daly, but it must have been Joshua Lation. So we're going to have a race replay, see exactly what happened to Lation here at the beginning. I think this is actually after it has happened already. No, there they are getting spun out to the side. They're hooked by Beaumont into the wall. That's why we find Lation now down in P11. Going back to what you're saying, Austin, about Verstappen at the beginning, I mean, that's what Verstappen's known for, isn't it? It doesn't matter where they qualify, you can be sure they go for that very early move. We saw it twice last week at both of the race restarts over at Paul Ricard. We see it almost every race, I feel, Verstappen going for those very daring moves at the beginning. And, well, in a nutshell, this is how it's panned out this week. Finally able to find their way into that front line up there in P1 right now. And Martin Lawrence already 1.5 seconds behind. This is the race that Verstappen needed.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a huge confidence boost. And right now, at this point in time, Lawrence will be doing exactly what Verstappen is doing. Look at that 1.5 second gap. Look at that lead extend. That is exactly, usually, these roles are usually completely reversed. This is exactly what Lawrence would normally do. Just build that gap and keep building it over the course of the race. And now Verstappen has stopped that momentum. We're talking about not making mistakes before, and I don't know how much kind of I don't know how much kind of cross-platform we have with our viewership. I've been watching a lot of the big CSGO tournament on recently, and there's a lot of the big teams, a lot of the teams you'd expect to not make these kind of mistakes, falling to the quote-unquote lesser teams, because they're just not kind of checking, they're just not checking the sort of, not dotting the I's and crossing the T's as much as they would like. And I feel like that also translates a little bit here as well. Lawrence losing another place to Daly as well, by the way. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean by not dotting your I's and crossing your T's. You lose one place, you get a little bit rattled, you get a little bit tilted, and then all of a sudden, you're fighting with the rest of the field.
Absolutely, not to call Connection Lost Racing a lesser team by any means anyway, because we've seen them at the top of the last championship. They absolutely dominated, but your point still stands. Martin Lawrence maybe a little bit rattled here. Made a couple of mistakes early on in this race, right after I mentioned as well that they don't make a lot of mistakes. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the commentator's curse striking yet again. Currently under pressure from Lacalante as well. It looks like Lawrence can't quite get their footing. You did mention that they might struggle out on track today in the Aston Martin. It's looking like they are just a little bit skittish in the early stages of the race. That's giving Verstappen a huge window of opportunity. 2 seconds away at the front there. John Daly though back into P2, and an overtake happening here on your screen. Plasman going for a move down the inside of Kwiatkowski, opening the door for Joshua Lation to look for a way through as well. The 61 car up into that P9 slot. Joshua Lation coming through too, found himself up into P10. Now they are putting the attack onto Plasman themselves as well. Can Joshua Lation find a way through here? We said that overtaking was going to be hard today. These two made it look particularly easy, but now you can see Lation just struggling to find any window of opportunity. He's ducked down towards the inside of the corner, but fortunately for them, they're not going to be able to find anything just yet. Very hard to get alongside on the track this thin, isn't it, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, look at the lines these guys are taking. Lation's taking the later apexes, able to get the power down a little bit sooner at the expense of a little bit of cornering speed, but has a higher top end coming down the straight. I mean, they're both going in the Ferraris, both different setups, but at the same time, the racing line is what kind of it attributes to the pace of these drivers. And Lation definitely has the pace, but you can see them having to back out because the opportunity to get themselves by just is not there. So it's a little bit frustrating, I think, for Lation. Running up there, running at the top, running with the big boys, and having something beyond their control. For let's be honest here, the second time this season.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Alton Park, wasn't it, where they had
it? Was Alton. Oh, yeah, I don't want to say it was not out of their control entirely. I mean, end of the day, stewards got involved. They were slapped with a penalty for it. So whatever the stewards saw, they see a lot more than we do. But it does feel like Lation just having these results despite having such a rough season with the inclusion of that Alton Park. But again, we do have the drop round, and the last thing Lation needs is to have another bad race here, and that's them alongside now. That's alongside Jim Plasman, and lining up for a potential opportunity going down into the chicane.
Lation still trying to look for a way through. Kwiatkowski wants to get those positions back as well. You can see them lurking in the background here. Of course, they're not fighting for points if they get an overtake, because Lation and Plasman both silver split.
Ooh.
Drivers, you can see Lation there able to get a slight bit of an advantage as Plasman there picked up a bit of the curb, slowing their momentum a tad. Look back towards the top of the field for a second. Martin Lawrence falling 1.2 seconds off Jordan Daly, still under pressure from Legalante. Now, Austin, we were saying Verstappen needs a golden end to the season and a bit of luck as well. Looking like so far this race may be it for them. Joshua Lation, by the way, looking towards the outside here. The South Verstappen got the overtake off at the beginning, however, Verstappen a little bit more forward than Lation is there, and yet again, Lation will just have to tuck behind. Well, there's 52 minutes left in this race. For those of you wondering about the format here today, it is an hour-long race. It's one-man, so pit stop that has to be served within a 10-minute pit window in the middle of the race. It opens 25 minutes in. It then closes with 25 minutes left to go as well. No tyre change is necessary. However, you do have to refuel the car. So you're likely to see maybe a tyre change there. Actually, probably not. If the weather continues to pour down, Austin, I imagine no one will be changing tyres at all here. It saves you that extra 5 seconds. You see them a bit further up the field. If someone does choose to take tyres here, we're going to have a look at a couple of the lap 1 replays. I know Simeon in the chat is saying I missed the start. Well, here's what happened towards the start of the race. Martin Lawrence and Verstappen fighting neck and neck through the S's. Notice Verstappen on the left hand side towards the inside of the corner here, allowing them to gain that advantage, pushing them up into P1. Martin Lawrence just losing out there as well. Further down the field, you've got Daniel Duret fighting, and they make contact with number 52, I believe that was there. And you can see them managing to carry on there. There was also an incident as well, similar place on the track as well, which isn't this, but this is Ricardo for P12 making a move here, catching the inside of, actually this Ricardo getting caught by the 137 there. And you just saw that they turned to the side as well. An unfortunate situation for a lot of drivers at the start of this race. Ted Edwards, who struggled a little bit in qualifying today to get that lap eventually. You see Lation off the side there on the right, grinding into the wall. Ted Edwards, though, managing to keep it clean through the S's, able to get themselves all the way up into P6 for them. A great load of points will be coming their way if they manage to hold on to it as well. And here's George Kwiatkowski behind the wheel, P9 in the 2-1-2, able to just navigate through the field. Not a whole lot of collision between them either, but there's a couple of cars there making it through safely, Austin. A couple of cars getting caught up in collisions, and was it 3 cars we saw going into the wall on the right hand side there? So funnily enough, not the first corner that was the danger zone. She turns 2, 3 and 4 where maybe a little bit more looking out needed to be had.
Yeah, I mean, the second sector is just that tight really though, isn't it, Tim? So it's kind of really hard. I mean, I was so surprised as well that Verstappen and Lawrence didn't have it coming together because they gave each other so much space. That's the thing with these guys. Not only are they quick, they can actually, you know, they know how to fight. They know how to give each other the room. That's Wilkinson. It was like making a move on Ted Edwards, or at least attempting to, pulling up alongside. Goes to show the pace that Wilkinson has as well, and most of that's been on the team. Obviously, teammates with, as you said it before, teammates with Lation, and they're all kind of putting in those results. Wilkinson just squeezing on by, and actually no, but was Wilkinson under attack from Edwards? Sorry, so. Oh no, well, Edwards wasn't P6. I'm losing track, but no, Wilkinson squeezing on through, and goes to show just what kind of pace they actually have. And I want to make a note as well on the tyres, Tim, because I believe this is actually, at least for us on Friday, champ, this is the first time we've seen these new updated tyres in the wet. Like, this is the first time we've seen the wets, and we've seen heavier graining on the tyres before that update. You know, it came out with a bit of a problem. That problem was fixed. So I'm wondering what the wet weather tyres, how they're going to react over the course of a full stint. That's Ryan Daniels taking a little bit of a hit there. And I believe that's the 13. That's what.
That's Behemoth that's just giving them a bit of a nudge from behind. They've returned to the pit lane as well, so maybe Behemoth maybe looking to retire this race. We'll see if we can get any more information on that for you as we go. But you were mentioning Wilkinson able to find their way up into P6, currently leading the silver split at the moment. Well, this race for them is a huge opportunity to get back into P1 in the championship. Of course, they're in P2 currently for the silver split with their teammate Joshua Lation ahead of them. The only difference between the two drivers is that Reece Wilkinson has had a first and a third place finish, whereas Joshua Lation has had a first and a first place finish, counting towards their totals. Of course, both of these drop round so far in the series. Did score points in though. Lation picking up 18 for P6, Wilkinson picking up 4 points for round 1, where they finished 12th overall. But honestly, it's a huge opportunity for Wilkinson here. We talked about this being a huge opportunity for Verstappen. This is a huge opportunity for Wilkinson now. Lation a bit further back in the field, running P4 in class. Now you've got Wilkinson at the front with Ted Edwards now between them and the nearest competitor. It's a good point scoring opportunity, Austin. That could pull them back into this championship.
It could. It really, really could. I mean, they're only really fighting with their teammate as well anyway, so I imagine that will warrant a few discussions behind closed doors. But no, as a team, can you imagine as well, for the Spinelli Motorsport guys, can you imagine, like, not just one driver being promoted, but multiple, or even all three? That's gotta feel good, right? It's gotta mean that, you know, you're doing something, you're with your friends, you're with your teammates, and you're doing something, and you're doing it right. You know, you're all making the same kind of progress, and it's showing in the results right now. Lation still trying to find a way around Plasma. And every time we look, it seems like getting closer and closer, with a little bit of overlap down into T1 there, I noticed. Lation having to back out, and I mean, there's a lot of faith here in Plasma to actually, or in both drivers even, to sort of like leave the room going into Sector 2, and indeed in other parts of this circuit as well. As we said, it's so hard to actually get by, and again you see the overspeed. Lation having a really good run, but the momentum just stopped because there's no other way around the Ferrari of Plasma.
Looking now towards the outside, picking up some of the grass there, which unsettles the car. That opens the door for Kwiatkowski to try and find a way back through. Kwiatkowski though, maybe being a bit lenient, lets Joshua Lation rejoin the track, no problem. Didn't want an error to occur there, which could have seen both drivers ending their race slightly early. Let's have a race replay here of the incident that we just seen. So this is Joshua Lation. You can see them going towards the outside here, very close to Plasma. There's no contact between the two. Just ran out of room on the track there. Lation's right wheel's touching the grass, really unsettling the car. Luckily though, managing to hold on to it. I mean, part of that is the new update. Of course, they've made the punishments less severe for using the grass runoff. So I've heard a lot of drivers saying that you don't get punished quite as much as you used to in the game, where you just go flying into a wall. And there's also, it's just easy to keep control of the car. I mean, that's the perfect example there. Joshua Lation able to drive on the grass and somehow not lose it when it's this wet on track. That's an achievement. I'd be bragging about that to my teammates, Austin.
Yeah, it does make me question though, was there enough of an overlap between the two that it could be considered Lation was pushed off? I don't want to start a conspiracy. That's to one of the Porsches. That was Virtus, I believe, or Virtus going onto the grass and losing it down at the bottom of the hill there. But no, was there enough of an overlap between Lation? I mean, we're watching the replay of this thing. I don't think this is what our broadcaster meant to do. Broadcasting life, you know. But again, was that enough of an overlap to consider that we've been maybe a little bit pushed off? I mean, our stewards will have to take a look at that to confirm. But no, I believe that was Virtus at the bottom of the hill there, just taking a little bit of grass and going sideways. We're about to just see. All right, maybe not. Our broadcaster's trying. He's trying.
No. I think this is more exciting. I think this is Daly somehow losing P2. It is. You can see Daly there off the side of the track. Made a mistake. Martin Lawrence going very wide around the outside there. Martin Lawrence back up into P2. I did wonder what was happening because we caught that and it said at the bottom right, Martin Lawrence was in P2, and I was like, hang on a second, what's happened to Daly then? You saw there, Daly just went off the side of the track, has managed to tuck back in P4, to lose a couple of positions in the meantime. Though, unfortunately, we don't quite know 100% what happened, but Virtus is now at the back of the field in P16, so I imagine they did have a bit of an adventure off the side of the road there. Awesome. Going back to the conversation about Lation Wilkinson and their teammate, of course, Daniels as well. Well, those of you that don't know, they took a bit of a break from sim racing for a little bit, and put some attention into some other activities, and then came back this season with a passion for sim racing reignited. Joshua Lation, of course, leading the team to several victories so far in this season. Wilkinson as well, leading the team too. They've been competing in some of our other championships, most notably the 6-hour series that we have been running across some of the weekends. And they've been doing very well in that too. But this team is back now in sim racing, and they are looking to make some impact on the scene. And I'll say, Austin, if they perform as well as they do in this series across the other series, they will be making a huge impact on sim racing.
Yeah, I mean, they have the potential, I think, to join the likes. We've waxed lyrical about Verstappen and Lawrence, and again, I think Lation has the opportunity to get there as well. They've proven that they can fight with the big boys, on multiple occasions now, and I think just finding that little bit more consistency, and they will be up there as well. I mean, as it stands, they're already after the mishaps. They're still P3 in class after all of this. They've make that P2. They've just found a way around Plasma. Plasma has a 5-second penalty anyway. In fact, the penalty reports for that are starting to come through, so we can read a few of those out for you as is. A lot of them have already been served. I did see some red boxes on the side earlier, but lap 1, turn 2 involving car 30 and 61, warning for car 30. Lap 1, turn 2, car 13, 97, 15-second penalty for car 13. Car 13, I believe, has retired since. Lap 1, turn 6. That's a little bit of a replay here, and I think this will be. That was Plasma making a bit of a mistake, a little bit of oversteer on the curb, and that is what allowed Lation through. Lap 1, turn 6 involving 30 and 137, drive through for 137, take out of 30, position not returned. Lap 3, turn 14, that's number 66, number 13, NFA. That's lap 7, turn 2, 66 and 13, warning for car 13 for avoidable contact. And lap 8, turn 10, number 61 and 97, 5 second for 61. 61 forces 97 off the track. So that would be kind of what I was on about before. Was it a little bit of a squeeze? And the stewards apparently seem to think so.
Just as you're finishing up there, Lagalante made a move on Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence were able to defend the position. Remains P2. Lagalante, of course, running P3 currently. John Day there also looked to make a move as well after Lagalante failed to get through Lawrence. Didn't quite find enough of a gap though to wedge their way into the fight. They remain in P4. For now, you can see Van Sand heading, backing up the rest of this train. They're just through in there. Huge!
That was a lunge.
Lagalante in the Porsche there. Of course, that meant that they had a very bad exit compared to Lawrence, but wow, I'm not sure if that was intentional. I think that may have been a slightly delayed break then. Oh no, who's that in the wall?
That is Daly. That is Daly in the wall. I was going to say, like Atlanta sent that from a different freaking postcode. But no, I think that was a little bit of crossover between the two cars. No, it's not Daly. Daly was the car behind. Just the crossover on each other a bit. And a little bit of a punt there, it seems. So Daly in P4. And who was that in the wall?
Oh, that was Van Sand that went into the wall there. Daly catching their rear after Van Sand managed to get through. after turn 1. I just saw a huge car appear in the front of the screen there, Austin. I was like, what has happened there?
Yeah.
Like picking up a bit of the inside grass, but God, that was quite dramatic for Van Sand. Now running in P10. Hopefully they've not picked up too much damage. They are still running this race. They haven't returned to the pits yet, but may have to duck in. It's of course 5 minutes until that pit window opens up. Until then, drivers will have to remain on the damaged cars for as long as they can. But they don't have to take the extra pit stop in the race. Of course, anyone pitting outside the pit window will then have to pit again during the pit window in order to serve that requirement. If they don't, they'll land themselves a very hefty penalty come the end of the race. Dagalante though dropped off the back of Martin Lawrence now, picked up quite a lot of grass across the last couple of corners there, Austin. Maybe for Lawrence it's just a bit of an opportunity to breathe, maybe get their pace back up, maybe look towards closing that gap again, which is now 5 seconds to Verstappen ahead.
Yeah, just a little bit of almost like a mental timeout, so to speak. You know, all you have to do is just kind of keep it on the track. You know, you manage the gap behind, and I mean, it's hard to see how they're going to manage that gap in front. But as I say, Verstappen's just doing what Lawrence is doing, giving him a taste of his own medicine, really. You know, just taking that first position and just running away with it. I mean, we've not seen too much of Verstappen, so I don't feel like we've really needed to. They've just kind of kept themselves out of trouble. But one thing I've actually been thinking about a little bit, Tim, from the formation lap even, is you mentioned how short of a lap this is. How long is it until traffic also becomes a problem? There's a few people having a bit of a shock over a race, you know, people have lost a lot of time. And obviously with it only being, you know, such like a 1 minute 41 lap, if you're going by the guys back here, so 1 minute 40-ish towards the top. How long is it until we start seeing blue flags?
I think we've got a little while yet. If you look at the track map on the right hand side of your screen, well, the number 41 of Quito, who's running currently in that 16th place, has only just crossed the start finish line. Verstappen coming around the final corner. Kwiatkowski, they're facing the wrong way. The 2-1-2 able to recover fairly quickly, but losing, I'd say, about 4 or 5 positions in the process there. Has managed to regain their control though of the car. Be following on, I believe that's Van Sand just ahead of them, so falling down to what looks like P11 overall. Unfortunate situation for them. Did they catch another car there, or did they just spin out on their own terms? I didn't see another car involved, or Austin. I wondering if maybe she lost a grip there. Actually, we get race replay to answer that question. Here is Jim Plasman's mentioned on the side, which means there's most likely contact between the two drivers.
Yeah.
Actually, it happened right behind the barrier, so we didn't catch it on camera, but it looked like maybe contact there between Plasman and Kwiatkowski. Saw Kwiatkowski spin to the side of the track. Unfortunate for the BDG Sim Racing team, but P11, it's not too bad, and Kwiatkowski soldiers on. A lot of penalties will be handed out in this race as well, and Plasman already with 5 seconds, maybe getting another one there as well, so still room to climb back up through the field, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, there's still time, there's still space, and a lot of the, you know, they've been kind of putting in their pace anyway and keeping ahead and actually pulling time on the guys up front, so yeah, no, Kwiatkowski totally not over. There's opportunity for them to make up some of that damage. I mean, Van Sander also doing a really stellar job at just making up some of the places from the spin earlier on. So everything's just kind of spacing out a little bit. Everyone's kind of starting to learn the limits, kind of respect each other just a little bit more, respecting the track and respecting the conditions, which, looking at the track map, seems like they're going to get worse. Looking at the forecast, in 10 minutes it's set to get heavier. So yeah, everyone's just starting to get to that point in the race where they're settling down, starting to think about the start, and that's, you know, it's kind of where you should be if you're driving out in this. You know, it becomes a bit of a race of attrition. Leishman, for a brief moment there, was actually ahead of Wilkinson before the timing sheet updated, but it looks like it's going to be another Spinala Motorsport kind of washout, really, at the top of the silver.
Perhaps so. You can see Daniels there in P10 there, just within that 5 seconds to Plasman. So right now it is a 1-2-3 for the Spinala Motorsport team. Joshua Leishman doing a great job of recovering their way back up through the field. Well, Austin touched on it just a little while ago about the information that we're given throughout races in terms of weather forecasts and track conditions. Take a look, for you viewers at home, to the top right hand side of your screen now and take you through how to read the information. Of course, the first little tab there is the weather forecast. The rain set to get heavier in 10 minutes time, and then 30 minutes time gets even heavier as well. And in the second tab, track conditions. Right now the track is only damp. Now it can get worse than that. Track conditions wet, and I believe flooded is also a condition as well in ACC, but only being damp means it's on the lighter end of wet right now. So still quite good lap times can come out of these cars. However, by the time the track hits damp, you always want to be on those wet tires. It's greasy where you can maybe just about get away with some dry tires, but it does depend on the track temperature. Not playing a huge factor in today's races. It's quite cold and it's expected to be that with the rain anyway, but sometimes drivers look towards the track temperature tab, as the hotter the track, the more pressure is going to go into the tires and keep them hot, and that means they're likely to pick up more graining and sometimes even a puncture as well. So all about managing those tire pressures to make sure you get the best performance out of tires as well. Even after the most recent update, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 27 psi you want to be aiming for now, whereas in the past it was actually 28 psi that you were looking towards. I'm being corrected by our broadcaster here, Cohen. It's between 26 and 27 now, whereas I believe before it was between 27 and 28. So slightly less PSI in these tyres since the most recent update. Joshua Lation going for a move on Ted Edwards here. Ducks down towards the inside of turn 1. Ted Edwards, though, very much still ahead by the time they get to the corner, but with a slight disadvantage there on the outside. Now runs down in P7. Joshua Lation picking up another position. Closes the gap between them and Wilkinson. The chase is now on between the Spinala Motorsport team at the front. And then the final tab out of the top right that is very much worth mentioning is the wind speed. Direction doesn't matter too much, but the wind speed definitely does. If it's a wind speed of 0 kilometers an hour, then the weather very unlikely to change at all. Whereas if there's any wind speed at all, even just 2 kilometers an hour as we're seeing here, that's when the weather is most likely to change. Of course, the faster the wind's going, the more variable the weather can be. And the track you might have just seen at the top has gone into wet condition as well, so those lap times will now be getting a lot slower across the field. But Ted Edwards currently running in P7, that's P5 overall. A fairly good race there, Mawson. It'll pick them up quite a lot of points in this championship, and they finished so far in 8th, 7th and 9th. Well, this will be a P5 finish for them. I think they'll be fairly happy with that. It'll be their best finish so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of turn your nose up at any kind of podium position, even if it is just in class. I mean, I know we've seen Lation kind of fighting up towards the top of the podium overall, but no, I mean, for the Spinala guys, this is, kind of a bit of a fairy tale race. I mean, that recovery from Lation, Wilkinson's just had the pace this whole time, and it's not over yet. So yeah, for those guys, this is kind of one of those races, something that can be proud of collectively as a group. And I believe that is Wilkinson into the pits now. That was allowed Lation through, but that's only provisionally for now. We will see where they come out at. 7 minutes 20 left on the clock to actually make the stop. And as the track condition changed, so did the weather, and somehow, Tim, it's set to get even worse in half an hour, and that is towards the end of our race. So this is going to progressively get even more difficult.
Absolutely. Half an hour time, and then it's going to be very, very wet conditions. I mean, that's not going to be ideal for a lot of these drivers. That is when the track is going to be at its most lethal in terms of low grip as well. Currently running the screen is Ryan Daniels in the RD66 car. Of course, stands for Ryan Daniels 66, which is their car number. They are one of the Spinala Motorsport team drivers there, running in P9, P3 in class overall. And you can see top of the field for Shepard setting that fastest lap time. They've had a couple of fastest laps across the most recent past few laps, Austin. And a good race is all that can be said about Verstappen right now. I don't want to jinx it for them. I don't want to do a commentator's curse. But this definitely is the race Verstappen was waiting for. 7 seconds between them and Martin Lawrence. I mean, we were talking about how we've not seen them a lot today. Well, it's because we don't have to, because they've basically just been hot lapping. I'm wondering if Martin Lawrence, I mean, we've not seen them a lot in this championship because they've been doing a similar thing. Maybe Martin Lawrence just wanted a bit of screen time today, and that's why they're running in P2 right now rather than at the front. They just figured, hey, I want that connection loss delivery on the screen at least some point in this race.
it's just kind of become one of those races where everyone's just sort of settled into those kind of positions, and everyone's just sort of just sorting themselves through, really. I mean, the big thing is when does Verstappen come in as well? I mean, there's only 5 minutes left to do it, and so Verstappen's running out of time. 7.3 seconds, 7.4 seconds isn't a huge gap to like have to come back from. Like, I mean, it's big, but especially in a race like this. But it's not impossible. It's just Verstappen is one small mistake away from Lawrence taking that P1 back.
Couple more of you joining us now in the chat. Big warm welcome to you all gearhead questioning who names the team Spinala Motorsports. Well, we've actually heard a couple of times from the drivers behind the Spinala Motorsports car, and well, I imagine a bit of a play on words there. However, has had a couple of spins throughout the season, but very good team at that, dominating the Silver Split Championship so far. Kwiatkowski here going for a move on Daniels, both having served their pit stops, and now you can see the 2-on-2 driver looking for a way back through the Spinala Motorsport team. You can tell it's a Spinala Motorsport car, even though they don't have the name on that car, by the livery design, all of them having that slight curved line going down the bonnet, and then two different colours, usually a white and then a slightly darker one on the outside as well. And that's how you can tell the Spinala Motorsports team. Michael Redford as well joining us in the chat. Well, Michael Redford a couple of times in the Thursday Championship competing, and is now joining us in the chat today. So they've just won the GT4 class in the Jardier Community Race. Wet Donington was fun. You know what? I can imagine that. Donington Park, easily my favourite track in ACC. Wet Donington Park, one of my favourite conditions on the track as well. Austin, what are your thoughts? Personally though, Donington Park, I'd say best track in ACC, hands down.
I mean, it's up there. I think it's one of my favourite tracks in the UK at the very least, and we have some really, really good ones. I mean, we've got Alton Park. Alton's a lot of fun. I mean, Donington's up there. I mean, and Cadwell, but Cadwell's not in the game. So, yeah, I think Donington is easily up there, at least in my top 3 on the game. It's kind of my go-to whenever I pick the game back up. I want to go test something new. So, no, Bradford, congratulations on setting sail around a wet Donington. So, that's a really that's a big achievement. I mean, if it's anything like the race we have right now, you are sailing at this point. You're not driving. Verstappen.
Yeah.
Speaking of boats, Verstappen has come in for the pit stop and is now 20 seconds behind Lawrence, but Lawrence is yet to make theirs too. I'm not too concerned. Lawrence is in provisional first place right now. They'll be looking at making the stop within the next lap, maybe. I don't think they've got enough time to make it in 2 laps time, so they'll be looking at making their stop as soon as they can, really. They've just come around the first kind of couple of corners, coming into the first kind of banked hairpin where Verstappen made that kind of leap through in the first lap, so they'll have to come in pretty much at the end of this one. So, yeah, I mean, this is one of those races. I mean, the commentator's curse, yep, that's just us, really, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah, I was saying in the chat, I've already cursed Martin Lawrence today. They are back in P1 for now, but haven't served their pit stop yet. So, like I said, Verstappen holding that provisional P1 once the pit cycle happens. I'm currently just looking, though, at the information we get at the side of the screen, Austin. Either a lot of people have picked up some damage, or a lot of people have taken tyres, but not everyone, because there are some very differing times in the most recent pit stops here. Of course, you've got a couple of them that took a minute to get through the pits from start to finish. Now that is down to both penalties and fixing damage. However, a lot of them having varying times. Kwiatkowski there, by the way, getting through. Daniels there up into P9. But take this for example, Verstappen, a pit stop time of 30 seconds, and that's from pit entry to pit exit. Very, very quick. They definitely did not take a fresh set of tyres because it takes 30 seconds to do a tyre swap. However, Galante behind them, a 40-second pit stop. I don't remember seeing a penalty on Galante's car. I can't think why it would be 10 seconds slower. Am I being crazy? Or have some teams here opted to taking a fresh set of tyres? I would not have thought that would have been the strat today.
Well, I mean, Quite potentially, but at the same time, it could also just as well be damage as well. I mean, this is going to be an interesting one, but it's kind of one we sort of expected. Actually, is it? Like, we are about people taking tires. Is Lawrence taking tires right now? Lawrence has only just started moving, and Verstappen is past. Lawrence's box does seem to be towards the back end of the pit lane. They've just entered the track now, but that is still a pretty big gap, and we'll have to see just how big that gap is when the timing sheet updates. But I think Verstappen has pulled out a bit of a lead onto Lawrence there. So maybe there's something to that, Tim. Maybe has Lawrence taken tyres?
Well, Lawrence was slower than Verstappen anyway, out on pace alone. I mean, Verstappen was leading the field. Last I saw was 7 seconds, and that was about 5 minutes before pit stop. So maybe just a large gap between them anyway. And yeah, I don't think Martin Norris's pit stop was slow. 8 seconds behind. That's about where they were when they went into the pits, I think. So just a trick of the eyesight there, but still, it's a long way for Lawrence to gain. Of course, they really want to be closing that gap now, and 24 minutes to go. That is a fairly big ask for the Aston Martin driver. Of course, they want to make this the 4th race win of the season. So far, have won every single race of the championship. P1 in Barcelona, P1 at Alton Park, and then P1 last week round at Paul Ricard, of course, also getting pole position and the fastest lap at Paul Ricard as well. And today, I mean, they'll have the pole position award. However, so far, fastest lap and P1 looks to be going towards Verstappen, who had one of their, what can only be described as a Verstappen moment on turn 1, shot themselves down the inside, not the inside, so down the outside, stayed neck and neck with Lawrence for the entire first set of corners, and then as they entered into sector 2, finally found their way up into P1. A brilliant overtake from Verstappen at the beginning of this race. Of course, Joshua Elation originally started in P3 overall, but finds himself down in P6. He's been slowly closing on their teammate Wilkinson, who is first in class. Joshua Elation, of course, second in class. They should know, despite that incident at the beginning, went into the wall off track. So I mean, they'd have had damage like car, Austin has been climbing in the right direction, and the win definitely not off the cards for them. I'd say in the next 20 minutes or so, we could be seeing a fight between teammates. The conditions only getting worse. It'll be a very heated battle towards the end.
It could be, but let's not discount Daly. I mean, Daly's not going to relinquish that position anytime, at least easily. Speaking of Daly, 197 and 23, 15-second penalty for Daly. That was being served now, but that was for the contact with, was it Van Sander in turn 2. So, I mean, that's just to confirm, that has been what's put Daly down into P5. They were fighting on the podium. They were briefly P2. So, yeah, I mean, Daly is not going to let Lation by just that easily, but, I mean, it's going to be a great test to see what Lation can do in a racing scenario in these conditions with drivers with the same car even.
Well, last week round we saw a fight between Daly and Lation at one point. Daly did end up coming out on top, however it was a very short-lived fight since Daly had just come out the pits. Lation hadn't yet pitted. Of course, there's going to be a rematch now with both of them in a similar pit situation. We saw Lation as well have a fight with Verstappen last week at Paul Ricard, where they managed to hold them off for, I'd say, a good 6 or 7 laps, Austin. Well, Verstappen currently running 9 seconds ahead in P1 goes to show just what Lation can achieve. So keep your eye on that battle. 3 seconds time will be most likely closer. If Lation can keep up the pace it is, I mean, Daly here has some phenomenal pace around the track as well. Looking at their most recent laps, in fact, Daly there went a little bit faster, actually a little bit, I say, a second faster exactly on their best lap. 3/10 faster on the last one, so maybe a bit more pace behind the wheel is Daly right now. Lation, though, has been closing that gap slowly. We'll see if they can close it even more. And conditions set to get worse, Dawson. Anything can happen. I mean, look at that rain. We, of course, 30 minutes time doesn't matter so much now because there's only 21 minutes left in the race, but still, it's set to get worse in 10 minutes. I reckon we may see a flooded track at some point.
We actually could, Tim. That is a really good point, and we'll have to keep an eye out on that top right-hand corner. And yeah, no, usually from the camera angles we're looking at from the trackside cameras, usually like it's worse than it looks. It looks bad. let's get this perfectly clear. It looks bad, and it's going to look even worse for the drivers. So, I mean, I don't envy Kwiatkowski's position here right now, right on the back of Van Sander. This is a fight for position, not just overall, but in class as well. And the back of the spray that Kwiatkowski will be going in right now is going to make life very difficult to sort of see straight ahead, very difficult to spot braking markers even. And that is something you just have to be aware of in these conditions whilst following other cars.
I want to share a story about the wettest race I was ever in Austin, and Kevin Bloss knows exactly what I'm going to mention here, because they were also in that race as well. Of course, we were driving around Brands Hatch, and the conditions were specifically set to the worst they could possibly be. And let's just say I'm 90% sure I didn't have my tyres on the track for probably about 80% of the race. I was aquaplaning down the straights most of the time. It was absolute chaos for the race, and very, very fun at that, but it was eye-opening. Let's just say, trying to control a Ferrari in the wet, I mean, we were crawling at the race start, but there was still cars going everywhere. I went off not at the bottom of the hill, but when you're coming back up into the left-hander, Austin, I just went flying off the edge of the track. I'll tell you what happened. I went to brake, the top right hand of my wheel, only the very slight bit of it, clipped the curb, and oh my gosh, it was like I was in a rocket ship taking off. I flew into the sand trap at the side of the track, and it took ages to recover from it, because it's basically like driving on a beach to get back onto the track. It was Jurassic weather conditions, but I tell you what, it was a really fun race in the end, and actually very interesting to see what it was like in those conditions. But that is the worst I have ever seen it in ACC. If you guys at home have any experiences like that you'd like to share with us, or just want to share what your wettest race was, do let us know in the comments as well. I know Redford has just come from a very damp track, which they've just won on over at Donington Park as well, so congratulations to you, Redford, for doing that. Kwiatkowski looking for a way through Van Sand, not able to do so yet. Austin, what about you? Do you remember your wettest race in ACC? Is there one that stands out to you as just being, like, you get to it and think, oh my god, I never want to see rain again?
Okay, yeah, no, there was one that we had was the most fun. I don't know if it's the wettest, but it's the most fun I remember in recent memory. And that was one New Year, a group of us all kind of got together, decided, right, we're going to have a really sort of fun race, kind of rain in the New Year, Bathurst with the Maserati, because it hadn't long just come out. We put a bit of a stipulation on it. Now, not that I recommend doing this on stream, but every time you touch the wall, you took a drink.
Oh no!
These were very short, quick-fire races. We did put a warning out saying your safety rating may be affected. And for the final one, I remember it. I don't remember much. I'll be perfectly clear, but but I remember it being a night race in the wet at Bathurst with the Maseratis, with no traction control or ABS, whilst being a little bit inebriated. So I don't remember much, but that is probably the most hectic that I remember, and it went about as well as you can expect.
Now, one person I would pay to see in a race like that is one of our old broadcasters from the first champ, Christian Stricker. Can you imagine Christian behind the wheel, intoxicated, and trying to drive a wet track as well? I mean, that would, I'd watch him do it alone. No one else needed on track. I just watch him try and navigate a racetrack in those conditions. Put him at bar first, set him off, and see how long he takes to get round the lap. I think that would be maybe an idea for April Fools next year. But going back to the race, Kwiatkowski running in P9. We saw them go for a spin early on. The driver ahead of them, Van Sand, also went for a spin as well. They're fighting for, I believe this is 6th and 7th in the class respectively. Ted Edwards a bit further ahead of them, 7-second gap between them as well. You can see lurking in the background is Daniels, 3rd in class, and the 3rd Spinala team driver on the field. Of course, Elation now, nothing standing between them and teammate Reese Wilkinson, because John Daly has got themselves up into 4th place. That's a possibility we didn't talk about, Austin. Daly overtaking Wilkinson. We were saying that Lation had to get through Daly. It didn't occur to either of us that Daly may just go through Wilkinson first.
Yeah, honestly, I'll admit that never crossed my mind, and I feel bad because it feels like we've just discounted Daly a bit there. But no, Daly is rapid. I mean, again, it was in P2. It was, I think, it was a small mistake that sent them back. Really, in all honesty, I mean, 15-second time penalty was reduced because they attempted to get the position back. Yeah, no, I mean. Daly's rapid. I mean, we've not, recently this season we've seen results from them, but I know I've seen them struggle a little bit, with the likes of Billy Octane and a couple of other drivers we've had around, for a long time. Drivers we've always had a sung praises about, but I think this season Daly's really sort of found themselves a bit. Maybe it's the car, maybe it's the update, but we've started to see a lot more consistent results from Jordan, and that is going to play. You're going to carry that momentum, and that is, I think, what they will do, and that's what they're doing right now, bouncing back from the penalty. Look at it making a move into P3.
Absolutely, and Daly, like you said, has had a great season so far in this championship. Has found some hard luck in previous seasons, but now looking towards the inside, was that a slight tap down like Atlanta? I don't think so. I think it might have just been a correction from the number 7. Daly there looked for the move there. Unfortunately for them, door was closed. We'll see what happens here as Daly continues to push onwards. Wilkinson just lurking in the background there on your screen. Will be not wanting to get held up by this fight too much because teammate Joshua Lation just 3.4 seconds behind. Now, for those of you wondering why the field was quite small today, it won't be this small, hopefully, for the rest of the championship. There were a couple of sign-outs for this race. Billy Octane, this is why it came to mind, also Billy Octane being one of them, should be joining us again for the rest of the season soon. They're currently running P3 in the championship, just 2 points behind Grant Willimont, who I also believe wasn't signed out of today's race as well. They will be joining us later on the championship to continue fighting for the top spots. The drop round will be today's race for them. John Daly in the Baddest Motors car, again looking towards the inside of Legalante. Can't quite find a move yet, but 13 minutes left in this race, not potential. And Joshua Lation taking chunks now out of Wilkinson's time. 2.9 seconds stands between teammates. Now we're going to have a brilliant fight out of them for the final couple of laps.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be kind of on. I mean, the final spot for the overall podium, and honestly, right now with 10 minutes to go, Lation not being far behind Wilkinson not being far behind Daly making a move on Legalante, or at least taking a look down the straight. P3 at this point in time could belong to any of these drivers. There's Lation in the background, just about catching up, and the more Wilkinson, you said it before, the more Wilkinson is held up here. That's good news for Lation. That's and we've seen how they can take that momentum and how they can keep that rolling forwards. So I mean, they'll be looking at this fight in the distance, but licking their lips, trying to get onto the back of the number 6 Ferrari.
Lation, well, I mean, we said at the beginning of this race, didn't we, Austin? Overtakes very difficult to make today on a wet track. We've definitely seen our fair share of overtakes. Lation being one of the drivers to put off several of them across the field, so definitely on the cards is for Lation to pull off the overtake here. Of course, this will be for the win in their split. They do have to close the gap though. 12 minutes left to close, 2.7 seconds. They're on pace to do it. Keep your eyes on those times between the two teammates. John Daly still looking for a way through. Like Atlante wants to get themselves back up onto that podium. Now going for a move down the inside. There's Atlante going a little bit too wide, and that opened the door for Daly to get up onto that podium spot. The Baddest Motors driver now back up into P3. John Daly, Austin, they've been making moves in the final half of this race.
They really have. I mean, it seems like they've got the pace on Legalante. They caught up relatively quickly, actually. So I would expect them to start kind of pulling ahead. But again, I mean, how much time did Legalante lose fighting with Daly, and how much has it allowed Wilkinson to kind of catch up? Because if they're kind of going at a decent pace, that means that Wilkinson has a good opportunity here, and hopefully if they go on the grass like that, like Atlante having a bit of a slide there as well, but kind of manages to catch it and recover, and that has pushed Wilkinson back towards Lation.
Yeah, look at that down the straight. The two Spinala Motorsport drivers about to come together. You can see Lation lurking in the background there, hunting down their teammate Wilkinson. Wilkinson picking up a bit of the grass going along the straight there. Unfortunate for them, that's sprung Lation right into their reach. 6 seconds splitting up the 2. Come the end of this lap, that gap is going to be a lot closer if Lation keeps up this pace. Who will come out on top between the Spinala Motorsport teammates? Will it be Joshua Lation retaking the lead of this race? Will Wilkinson be able to hold off Lation, get themselves their second win of the season after Alton Park, where they scored top spots for that race? And both driving the new Ferrari. We've gone the whole race so far, and I'm about to break it. We've gone the whole race without mentioning that this championship has been driven solely in the new cars since the update. Of course, the Lambo, the Porsche, and the Ferrari receiving new upgrades. The other cars all receiving some slight tweaks to themselves as well, but not full new cars. And you can see Wilkinson, Lation, and even their teammate Daniels all opting into taking that new Ferrari, the preferred of the 3 new cars on track.
I think it's one that stands out the most, though. You know, I mean, the 911 and the Huracan, you know, Huracan, basically just building upon existing models that were already in the game to begin with, and you know, to varying levels of, shall we say, to varying levels of popularity. That's John Wales putting up on the side of the Boomer Hut Racing Team. So. Is that,
hang on, someone else has gone off as well at the other side, look. Number 41.
Yeah, okay, okay, well that's something big. I mean, it's the Boomer Hut guys, and both cars apparently on the same team, so what has happened here? That's rather peculiar for both cars to have a stoppage. That's a little bit unusual.
The only thing I can think is they either share the same internet and they've both just run into problems with it, or they were considering retiring from this race, pulled over to the side and then went, no, actually let's continue on with this race. Maybe waiting for each other. No, they've returned to the pits. Number 56 has returned to the pit. I think they're retiring. Also, I think the team there is going to retire both the cars, and that's why we saw them pull over to the side. That being said, actually Quito carrying on with the race so far has the number 43 hot on their heels of the truce. So we'll see what the fight between them brings. Reese Wilkinson looking for a way through La Galante. They desperately want to put another car between them and their teammate Joshua Lation, now within a second of Wilkinson. Keeps reeling in the Spinala driver on your screen right now. Problem is for them, La Galante really setting the pace of this fight right now. That's only actually going to help Wilkinson though, Austin, because the thing is let's say Lation now closes this gap, they go for an overtake. Where do they go? They can't go anywhere. Wilkinson's just going to be sitting in the way. So this can put, not Wilkinson, sorry, Legalante's going to be sitting in the way. This can play into Wilkinson's hand here. It's not the ideal situation, but it could work. What Wilkinson needs to be careful of is not doing what they've just done. Going for an overtake, not having it pan out, losing more time to Lation. The problem is, if they go for an overtake now and it doesn't work, they leave the door wide open, completely exposed, completely vulnerable to Lation behind. They need to pick and choose their fights carefully from now on.
Quite potentially, but I also imagine that, you know, that Lation's closed up. There'll be in a voice chat somewhere, no doubt, and you know they'll be communicating, basically saying, hey, you know, I'm going to go for this if I fall back. You know, Lation gives Lation an opportunity just to kind of hang back a little bit, let Wilkinson go for the move. And not necessarily just a team orders thing, but just kind of a bit of a heads up, just in case someone makes a mistake. You know, you don't want 2 cars actually taken out in each other's mess. So it's a really, really good opportunity to actually have that communication, which otherwise the drivers wouldn't have if they were on opposing teams. So, I mean, this is actually an opportunity for the Spinala guys to be able, maybe a little bit tactful about it. Give each other a little bit of space and just give each other the space to kind of run, to not impede each other as much as possible, as much as Lation will want to get by.
Absolutely. I doubt there's going to be team orders between the two to just let Lation by. It's open game at this point. Both of them have wins in the championship so far. They will battle it out most likely till the end of this race. That being said, that they can still work together. It entirely depends on what their plan here is as well. Of course, Lation now within the reaches of Wilkinson. 4 attempts splitting up the Spinala team drivers. What will Lation do here to look for a move? Of course, we've seen them pull off a lot of overtakes so far in this race already. I think they've probably pulled off the most overtakes out of any driver on track as well, not just capitalising off other people's misfortune. So we'll see if Lation can pull off another one now. Of course, that's the other thing that comes into play, Austin. both of these drivers, Wilkinson and Lation, need to be on their A game for the next 6 minutes. No mistakes can happen if they want to come home with the win today.
That's it. I mean, looking down the order, there's about 25 or so seconds between themselves and actually no, that's not even in class. It's about 25 seconds between themselves and Daniels. Again, another Spinala Motorsport driver. So as it stands right now, they're looking at a team 1, 2, 3. So right now, they don't really have anything to lose. I mean, Lation's so far ahead on the championship and Silver Split right now as well that even coming P2 to their teammate isn't going to be the end of the world for them. So really, really strong finish for the whole team right now. So, I mean, yeah, for the closing 5 minutes, it's all down to that.
I love that what we're watching right now is a fight between teammates for first in class. Wilkinson, by the way, found a way through. Legalante spicing things up a bit here, splitting up the Spinala Motorsport drivers. Now going for a move back on Wilkinson, down towards the inside. Wilkinson, though, still hanging it out towards the inside of the end of the chicane. And number 6 ahead, coming out of the corner. Legalante not able to find a way through, looks towards the inside yet again, though. A lunge from them puts them alongside Wilkinson. Going through the final corner, that opens off Joshua Lation to come through as well. They've gone for the inside too, and now alongside their teammate coming out onto the start-finish straight. It will be a drag race here, and Wilkinson making contact with the outside wall there. That spells the end of the battle for them. Lation up into P1 in the Silver Split will now be your leader for the race. Wilkinson, unfortunately, will pick up damage for that, and now their chance of win looking very, very dim.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking, I'm presuming we're looking at this again. Yes, thank you, Kevin. And Kevin coming in with the replays and the broadcasting. Was that a little bit of a bump there I saw? I think I saw the number 6. Yeah, there was contact between them apparently. So, yeah, no, that was just a little bit of a kind of a move. That's Lation actually making it past Legalante whilst we've been talking there. But that was a bit of a bump between teammates, and I can imagine a few apologies being shed in that voice chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how much contact was between the two. I think there may have been a slight tap between them. However, again, they can work together now. You can see Joshua Lation has the opportunity to hold up Legalante here, which they are doing. That means Wilkinson can catch back up. They will have to make the overtake on their own. And actually, Legalante here, though, going for a move on Lation. The battle not fully over yet between the 7 and the 97 driver. Legalante going towards the inside here will now be a drag race down to the chicane, and coming out on top is the Porsche. Never thought I would say that ever in my commentating life, as a Porsche winning a drag race in ACC. And with that, Legalante gets to the corner. They're back up into P4. Joshua Lation yet again now has to look to make that move. Of course, the Porsche not known for its top speed, Austin. Definitely better in the new car. And I joke about it. I didn't expect to see it win the drag race. Of course, that there was down to momentum coming out the corner. However, that being said, I mean, go back to Barcelona at the beginning of the season. Do you remember what we were seeing? We'd see a Porsche come on to the start-finish straight with the better exit, with much better momentum, and still unable to get past with an overtake. Like, that is how slow the Porsche is in acceleration in a straight line. Now, though, it is, of course, a lot better and can still pull off overtakes. So, I know a lot of Porsche drivers are happy with the upgrade on that front.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not be. And we've seen the pace of the Porsche. That's Wilkinson making a move on Lation, just kind of try to take the position back. And, I mean, going side by side down the S's now, it's really not an ideal situation. There's only really one line through it. But again, with it being wet, maybe coming off the line is the strategy. Lation keeping that position. And no, I think we were saying before, we've seen the pace of the Porsche in the first race this season. If you remember Salinskis' charge, they basically most of it, the lap times they were putting in relative to the cars around them, even Verstappen and Lawrence in the Aston, and Verstappen was kind of like towards the back. Honestly, they had a bit of a rough race. And no, we've seen the pace of what the Porsche can do at some tracks, at the very least in the right hands. It is absolutely rapid. So. Yeah, right now, this comes down to what I was saying before we start the stream. I personally, I mean, I know a lot of people might disagree, but personally, I feel like the game overall is really, really well balanced, and it seems to be that, you know, it's not a case of pure, I mean, the car choice can certainly help, but it's mainly down to the driver.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. I think the game, in terms of balance, is in one of the best positions it has ever been in. I think a lot of the cars are very similar, and at the end of the day, with the varying range of driver styles as well, the cars pay towards that. Different drivers like different cars better, and they all perform in their own ways. We've seen the Porsche do well in its own right. We've seen the Ferrari becoming massive yet again recently. Had a bit of a period where not a lot of people took it. Was revived by George Boothby in the late stages before the update, and now after the update, a lot of drivers back in the Ferrari. But each car has its own handling style, and you see drivers having different driving styles as well. And very, very close competition across the field in ACC at the moment. I know a lot of championships not having too much of a custom box, especially just after the update, simply because you don't need to. It's in a really good balanced position right now, and I like it that way. It's nice to see one car that isn't totally dominant. Of course, what I'm saying that we've got a field mostly made up of Ferraris. Part of that is just because it is a new car, and it's the easiest, reportedly, it is the easiest to just get behind the wheel and drive fast in it. That being said, though, the Porsche, a very fast car, the new Lamborghini as well, has a lot of pace behind it too. But I'd say in terms of balance, ACC in a brilliant position right now. I just want to touch on this, Austin. What I think has been brilliant about this race in particular is we have Leishman and Wilkinson, two teammates in the silver split, fighting with the driver running P4 in the pro split right now. I mean, if this is not a selling point for why the team should be in pro next year, I don't know what is.
Yeah, we were saying it before. I mean, imagine if everyone got the upgrade. Got the status boost into the class ahead. I mean, that's got to feel good as a team. And from the interviews with Leishman, they've wanted to do everything's been done as a team, and that's contact. That's contact, and in the closing stages too. The timer has ticked down, so I mean that is one lap remaining. That's huge contact on La Galante right there.
Oh, let's have a race replay here. I think this was Leishman completely taking La Galante out as well. It is. Oh no, actually, yeah. I think La Galante might have lost grip there at the end of the corner. Gonna ask Kevin here, can we get another replay of that, please, Kevin? If it's not too much trouble, because what I think happened there, Austin, we're gonna get another replay. Just watch La Galante's car. I think they lose it.
Yeah,
they do. They lose it at the end of the corner. And Leishman there is actually a passenger in this situation. That's not going to be a penalty for Leishman, but that Galante out of this battle sees Leishman back behind Wilkinson with damage, and we get a teammate fight in the final lap of this race. Speaking of final lap, Christoph Verstappen, ladies and gentlemen, their first race win of the season, almost losing it into the wall at the end of the lap there, just saving it until after they've crossed the line for the celebratory skids. Verstappen winning their first race of the season here at Zandvoort today in the wet weather. Martin Lawrence looking to cross the line in P2, their worst finish of the season so far. Kwiatkowski now trying to get back one more position. La Galante falling right into their clutches after their spin at the end of the last lap. And Kwiatkowski find their way up into P7. The chase is on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, we've seen some huge comebacks as well. I mean, we've seen Leishman come back. We've seen Daly come back. And speaking of which, Daly coming across the line now. And it seems to be that, if you kind of come back, but you kind of pull yourself back to within a certain time period with about 20 minutes of the race remaining. If you can pull yourself back to within just a few seconds within 20 minutes remaining in a race like this over the course of an hour, it seems like you have a greater chance of actually coming out on top in the end. So, I mean, I'll be keeping an eye on that in future races. I think I've got a bit of a theory going on, but other than that, I mean, this has been a great one.
It absolutely has. Some drivers left across the line. The only thing Redford has to say in chat is curse, ... I swear, I did not say anything about La Galante. Not that I'm aware of anyway. If I did curse him, I'm very, very sorry. And the final driver to cross the line here is Simon Vetrus in the number 43, wiggling their way across the line. And ladies and gentlemen, there are your top three finishers for today. Christoph Verstappen back on top, their first win of this season after a couple of rounds of misfortune. The Bentley able to cross the line in first place. Martin Lawrence, their worst finish of the season, but is still a great finish at that. P2 for the championship leader here today in the Aston Martin. John Daly, a second podium for them this season. P3 for them. Reese Wilkinson, a second race win for the silver class driver. That'll bring them close to their teammate in the standings as well. Their teammate Joshua Leishman finishing just behind them, 5/10, splitting up the Spinala Motorsport drivers. finishing P2 in class, and another Spinala driver, Daniels, rounding out the silver podium as well. Yet again, it's been a Spinala race down in silver. A great race all round, and Austin, I've got to say, rain always makes things interesting. Today, absolutely the case.
Yeah, it's felt like there's always been something going on. I know last week, Paul Ricard, we had a moment where we just sort of we even said a couple of times, there's really not a whole lot going on track right now, and we tried to not, I don't want to say keep the crowd entertained, but we kind of were able to go on a bit more tangent. We were able to kind of go on to a little bit more on the analytic talk. Talk about the update, talk about the cars a bit more. This time around, it feels like it's been more about the racing. So a few fun stories here and there. It's been a good one.
Absolutely, our partners who have helped to make today possible. We have Fanatec. They do not need an introduction. They are a global leader in high-end sim racing gear. We all know what hardware they can provide. And you can help RCI by using our affiliate link when making a purchase from Fanatec. Thank you so much for doing so. We also have Driver 61 helping sim racers fulfill their full potential out on track. You can use our 25% off viewer code. The link is in the description of this video, and it will get you 25% off any driver coaching from driver61.com. Digital Motorsports are your top brand and your one-stop shop for everything sim racing equipment. Go and check out their sim rig builder today, where you can build your own sim rig from the ground up. It's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it. Visit the link in our description. Go and give it a go right now, and then Go Setups provide expertly made AC setups for all skill levels. They're created by some of the fastest esports drivers and sim racing engineers from around the world. Setups fully tailored for both esports and just safe alternatives for anyone wanting to drive the car. Visit the link in our description. You can browse their premium setup shop today, and our final partner is AK Esports. They are a leader in esports management and competitions around the world. Go to their website, akesports.it, and find out about the services that they can provide over there as well. They've been one of our long-term partners, helping us run races like this back to back. Well, for those of you that have not had your racing fix for the week yet, you can join us tomorrow evening for the Night Owl Championship, which will be hosted by Jesse Lee and Ted Edwards behind the broadcast for that one. Stewie will be bringing you the cameras of the race. The Night Owl season halfway through has been very exciting so far. I definitely recommend checking that out. If you want to get involved in the racing yourself as well, you can join several of the RCI staff on a Monday for the BMW Academy series, where there'll be your favourites like John Dalton, Jesse Lee, and even Kevin Boss racing in that. Is involving all of the BMW cars. That is the TCX, the GT4, and the GT3. The first two rounds, I believe, are the I want to see the touring cars for this one. It is the M2 cars for the first two races. The second two races will then be in the GT4, and then finally the final two races will be in the GT3 as well. A very exciting championship there for any BMW fans. Go and sign up now. It's open on our website over at racerci.com. And of course, not this weekend, but next weekend, you can come back and join us for the final round of our 6-hour esports championship, where drivers will be taking on Paul Ricard, score that last set of points towards the championship cash prize. I believe is 10,000 euros. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. It is 10,000 euros that all the teams are fighting for in that championship. Paul Ricard being the final round. We had an exciting round last week in the Friday Champ. I have no doubt that Sunday will be just as exciting in a week and a half time. And of course, join us again next week for round 5 of the Friday Sprint Challenge. We'll be heading over to the Nürburgring for the Pin Ultimate round before packing our bags and going back to Spain for the new track Valencia for the final race in 2 weeks' time. Well, if you don't want to miss out on any of the action over here at RCI TV, make sure you hit the bell icon to be notified whenever we go live. Consider subscribing to the channel as well and liking this video. We'll do a quick shout out as well to Christian Stricker, who we mentioned earlier. They have just entered the chat to say goodbye to everybody. They're one of our broadcasters that has worked closely with me in Austin in the past over at RCI. But thank you all for joining us today. It's been a very exciting wet weather race. We've seen battles all the way up and down the field. Another top 3 lockout for the guys in Silver Split over at Spinala Motorsports. And of course, a great race for Verstappen as well, back on top in this season. You can find out what happens in the next few races of this championship by joining us for the last couple of rounds across the next 2 weeks. We hope to see you there. But for now, goodbye. We'll see you soon.